evening. Today is Tuesday, November 28th, and the time is 6:30 p.m., and I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Delory. Mata.
Present.
Stiegel.
Here.
Unken.
Here?
Shield.
Here.
James.
Here.
Serrato.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Item number 3, citizen comments. Item 3A, citizen comment period. The Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments from citizens early in the agenda of our regular meetings. Speakers are provided with an opportunity to speak during this time on any agenda item or any other matter concerning city business, and they must observe the 3-minute time limit. So at this time, I'll open citizen comments. Okay, seeing none, I will close those. Thank you. Item number 4, consent. We have item 4A and 4B tonight. That's the 700 Bunton Phases 1A2 subdivision and 1B subdivision. We require a motion and a second to approve the consent items.
With a motion?
Yes.
I move
Chair,
Hang on, we've already got a motion in progress.
I move that we pass the consent agenda. Sorry, items 4A and 4B.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner James and a second from Commissioner Shield to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on that?
yes, there is.
Okay.
I have a question for staff. This development says that it will have 5,682 feet of new roads. And the question is this land annexed?
Can you repeat the question, Commissioner Stiegel?
Yes, is this land in question, the rest of our development, is it annexed?
Is it annexed into the city?
That's what this is about.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
They're bragging of over a mile of roads, and these will be built out according to city standards.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. I think that one comment I would have going forward about this entire development is that it's 337 lots, single-family residential. What's not stipulated is that it's probably planned for single-family rental. Why would I know that? Because it's been advertised and promoted as that in the larger community and in the state. So I would recommend, as a commissioner, to the council that they really consider an investigation of the options available to them regarding single-family residence for rent. There are inherently a number of things that are problematic with these developments, as we're seeing. And I would suggest that actually these developments be required to be free, simple home ownership rather than rentals. Thank you.
Okay. Did you want to make an amendment to the motion, or are we voting as?
We'll vote on the motion. That was
Okay.
just a question I had and then an item of I wanted to state.
Okay.
It's okay.
Thank you. So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda items 4A and 4B, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Item number 5, consider and possible action. Item 5A, postponed August 22nd, 2023, August 29th, 2023, September 26th, 2023, October 18th, 2023. Consider and make a recommendation to City Council regarding a request by Pam Madere of Jackson Walker LLP on behalf of the Caraway Cattle Company Family Partnership, LLLP, Z-22-0110, to rezone approximately 101 acres to planned unit development, PUD to include approximately 72 acres of retail services zoning, RS, and approximately 29 acres multifamily apartments, R33, for property located at 301 Bebee Road in Hays County, Texas. There is a public hearing for this item. I don't know, okay. Will, do we have a presentation for this item?
Go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Oh, it was closed. I will open.
Or wait. Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry. So you can call for a public hearing and then close it out at the appropriate time. If someone comes up or doesn't come up.
I call for a public hearing.
No. The public hearing's already open. So ultimately the action you'll need to take is following, if anybody comes up or not, is we'll have to close it out. Close
Okay.
out the public hearing.
I will close the public hearing. Okay. Do we have a presentation?
All right, Will Atkinson for the record, Director of Planning. So before you, we have the long-awaited Caraway Cattle Company Family Partnership rezoning. So, y'all saw this back in August as a postponement and a couple other times in between then to do the same thing. And in that entire time, planning, engineering, public works, administration, all of our staff, we've probably spent, and legal, we've spent hundreds of hours coordinating with the developer, working on this negotiated project to finally get it to the point where it's brought to y'all. And tonight, y'all are seeing one component of that in terms of the zoning for a recommendation to City Council. There will be other associated documents that you will not consider because it's not y'all's purview per the charter and what have you, and those also include annexations, development agreement, a Chapter 380, which is an economic incentive for them, and I'm trying to think what else. And a TERS as well. So all of those are also in motion. They will all those documents and those action items, including this PUD, will be on the 12/5 and also the 12/19 council meetings. So as we're putting this discussion together with y'all tonight, please keep in mind that y'all are seeing a component of it only from a zoning perspective. Okay, so just as a little bit of background, this annexation is also is occurring concurrently at the same time, and it'll have first read on the 5th. But just as a heads up, the area in blue on the screen right there, that's already inside the city, and the area in yellow is approximately just under 38 acres. This is the area to be rezoned approximately, so 72 acres of retail services and 29 acres of R33, which is our highest density multifamily, which is pure multifamily in the traditional sense. And right here on the land plan, you can see within the 72 acres of retail, it says 600,000 square feet. That's a typo. It's actually 450,000 square feet approximately from the commercial standpoint. That includes a big box, hotel, various types of restaurants, office space, vertical mixed use along a little corridor right here. And then we have some multifamily in the back with a maximum of 426 units. It'd probably be a little bit less than that. I don't know why I did that. Hold on, let me stop sharing real quick. There we go. Looks like there was a bit of a glitch in the system. So my apologies there. Take it back to that screen, put it on presentation mode. Okay. All right, so there is one of the important exhibits is a circulation plan. This project, and I didn't state it earlier, we're working in conjunction with them with our road bond as well. So they are also donating the Kohler's Crossing right of way, as you can see along the edge there with the yellow dashed line. And then also the right of way that we need for the Bebee Road rebuild as well. So that's a massive component from the right of way from a cost savings that we're going to receive from that perspective. Additionally, they have a circulation route. The area in yellow is the Vibe Trail per the Vibe Trail Master Plan. The red solid line going left to right on there is a spur that they are going to put in on their dime to bring it into the project. The thinner red lines are vehicular circulation, and the dash blue lines are going to be where there's going to be pedestrian cross connections to all the different parts as well, which does not also include the perimeter sidewalks that there's going to be along the project as well. The retail elevations, these are primarily going to be in the development agreement. They largely meet the I-35 overlay, especially the big box and what have you, but we are providing some flexibility built into that to where we can have some better architecture, especially on the mixed use area that doesn't necessarily comply with the I-35 overlay, but it gives us the flexibility where we need it. The top image shows something similar to what they will probably develop on the big box portion of the retail. And then the bottom image is along that central quad for the vertical mixed use. We are anticipating that conditional use permits will be required, but they'll be reviewed and approved by staff. Within that, though, if for some reason that staff and the developer or the applicant who applies for the conditional use permit cannot come to an agreement on it, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and if necessary, the City Council will be the appellate court for that. So there are possibilities that you will still see them to some extent. But all the entitlements associated with this project will dictate ultimately what the architecture is going to look like. Here's some images of the anticipated multifamily and vertical mixed use. So the upper left-hand corner of this project right here is the vertical mixed use and it's in the upper, if you're looking at the plan, which is oriented to I-35, it'll be in the upper left-hand corner of that quad. And then the middle top image is the end cap of the quad, if you're looking due east. And then we have some other images right here as well. Right here we have the signage plan for the monument signs and the multi-tenant. And also, we wanted to make sure y'all are aware that we're including roof-mounted signs. Currently, our code for our signage does not allow that. This will be in the PUD, or this is in the PUD as it's drafted. But we do think there are opportunities where roof-mounted signs like that actually look good. Staff believes they do. And so we wanted to make sure we could account for that with this project as well, without accidentally violating our own code. Some key variances and code modifications. They're asking for the typical height variance from 45 feet in the retail services district up to 65 feet. There is a hotel height variance from 45 feet up to 90 feet. Multifamily height variance from 45 to 65 feet. And parking ratios on the multifamily, instead of 2 spaces per unit plus a half space for every bedroom above 2, we're looking at 1.5 spaces per multifamily unit plus 5% for guest parking. Most of the bedrooms on the multifamily will be 1 and 2 bedrooms with a few 3 bedrooms. So, but over averaging it out like that, it works out pretty well. It's not a huge issue. So, and we recommend approval of the zoning request conditioned per annexation of the 37.99 acre portion of the site be completed first. So, do y'all have any questions? We're recommending approval of the zoning request that they're asking and that we've worked together with, but it needs to be conditioned that the annexation has to happen first because annexation's occurring, but y'all are seeing the zoning before the annexation gets to council. So, not to confuse you. So, any questions?
Yes, Commissioner Shield.
Can you go back to the map of the entire site?
Yes. Give me a second here. This one?
That one's good.
Okay, let me make it
Where
bigger.
is the hotel going?
You can correct me if I'm wrong when I make my statement, by all means. I believe at this time it is anticipated at this corner right here. However, there's flexibility in the land plan, so if for some reason it needs to move to a different pad site, that's fine. We're not limiting it from a location standpoint per se.
Okay, so right now the height is 45 feet, and we want to increase it to 90. How many
Yes.
stories are we talking?
That's probably somewhere in the range of 6 to 7 stories, depending on the wall plate and all that kind of
So
stuff.
not much higher than Seton.
Seton is 9 stories,
That's
and
what I'm saying,
and
not much, not higher.
it will not be taller than Seton Hospital.
All right.
So.
Okay, other questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner James.
So the parking that you just talked about,
Mhm.
that's just for this specific part of the tract or of the thing? So like, is this for the annexed land or is this for the entirety of the site of the PUD?
The parking variance that I mentioned is specifically for the multifamily portion
Okay.
of the PUD.
What are are they the same as code regulation in the other portions of it?
Let me pull that up real quick. Let me stop sharing. Already did. Bear with me just a moment.
Okay.
We are looking at, for the retail services for the shopping center, 3 per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. And then restaurants, 8 per 1,000 square feet of floor area. So our typical code is 1 space per 250 square feet of gross floor area, so 4 to 1,000 on general retail. 3 to 1,000, 4 to 1,000, that kind of falls within a similar area, so we're not too concerned about that. We did want to increase the restaurant parking though, as we've seen in recent times with existing projects. Our parking ratios for restaurants per code are 1 space per 4 seats for guests and do not include stuff for staff. So this will help with that. So
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
And
Yes,
all-
Commissioner Shield.
sorry. And all the impervious.
Can you
versus
turn your mic
pervious-
on, please?
Sorry. All the impervious versus pervious is within our policies and such at this time.
So the RS zoning district is 80% maximum for impervious cover. They're showing 90% in this proposal. However, with the amount of landscaping that there's going to be, they didn't ask for any special requests on that. There's not a likelihood that when it comes on to a pad site for pad site basis that it's going to exceed, get anywhere close to 90%. So
And we have no issues with sheet flow or anything into any of the other, the neighborhoods behind it or anything of that nature.
it's actually kind of in a low spot for so Amberwood, Carl Daywood's warehouse project, and then the multifamily north of it are actually raised up a little bit above it. They're upstream.
Okay.
So this is more of an engineering question. If we need to bring engineering up, Mr. Ennis here, but
Okay.
it'll be properly designed to account for detention and make sure it meets our code.
Okay.
So-
All right. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner James.
Can we see the traffic flow again, please?
Yes, give me a second. Okay, can you see that?
Okay. All right, I'm good. I just wanted to look at something.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Perfect. I will fire away now. Page 11, Exhibit A, prohibited uses. Can you please explain to us why the prohibition is in place for 10 years on those
Oh,
uses?
excuse me. Let me get back to the PUD zoning here. You said page 11?
Yes.
So this was one of the items that we had discussions with their development team and our staff as well, including more than just planning, so administration and what have you as well. So given the broad timeline for the project, over 30 years or so maximum, we wanted to try to accomplish both goals. So we wanted to provide restrictions early on over the course of 10 years, but also flexibility in terms of if the market changed and what have you after that perspective. So, and also we also don't know what councils, how they're going to feel 10 years, 15, 20 years from now. Okay. Maybe they want to open up gas stations back up again, or maybe we just don't know. We can't see the future. We can limit things as much as we can, but we wanted to provide both of those options, really.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a question on that one?
Just a follow-up to this.
Sure.
When you say prohibition, and then I read gas station, one national and regional brand to be allowed, and then car wash, one national and regional brand to be allowed, is that in total including the ordinance that already exists, or is this in the PUD outside the ordinance?
A PUD modifies ordinances that we have. So we have a period of 10 years, but within the prohibited uses, you can have one gas station.
Even inside the mile?
Yes.
That we've
So
already.
this modifies this outside of that area.
Okay.
So, and also same thing for the car wash.
Okay. Will, if you could jump to page 1617 on the code modification for utilities. It's saying electric infrastructure to be allowed above ground. Can you please specify where that would be? Is this the whole site or only certain parts of the site?
A portion of it. So section 50-1 relates to existing utilities primarily. So the only areas that there's electrical existing that's above ground is along the I-35 corridor, and that's where this pertains to. So if as they're connecting to the system along I-35, if they make any modifications to that, those modifications have to be undergrounded. There's another code in chapter 41, which is a subdivision code, which says all new installations have to be underground for electrical. So everything along Kohler's and along Bebee and inside the project is going to be undergrounded.
Okay. Do you think it would be helpful for us to maybe modify the ordinance to just specify for this section that it's existing infrastructure to be allowed above ground? Is that something that
Or something along those
would
lines.
benefit us?
That's probably, clarification is never a bad idea,
Okay,
in my opinion.
okay,
So,
cool, thank you.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, legal's getting involved. Page 18, the code modification for chart 1RS. You already answered that question, just kidding. My next question. On chart 2RS impervious cover, this was actually a question that I directed to y'all in advance of the meeting, and what I heard at that time was that instead of 90, it should be 85, and it should be per the lot. Have y'all kind of rehashed that since that conversation, and we want to leave it as is, or is that something
We have
that
not
want-
rehashed that, and I forgot about the conversation.
Oh, okay.
You had asked that question when you were reviewing the documents. If that's a recommendation that y'all want to make, then and y'all
make
decide
it.
that's something that's appropriate, make sure that y'all include it in the vote. So
Okay, cool. This is a question that just popped in my head while you were presenting. The land plan from the presentation showed an arrow to a general area for vertical mixed use, but on the plan in the ordinance, it's showing half of a building being vertical mixed use. Can you clarify how much of that corridor, if you will, is going to be, yeah. So here we're showing half of a building, and on the presentation, it was just an arrow to the general area.
I'm going to have to defer to the development team here
Okay.
from Newquest, or I'm not sure, actually, probably your team. And if, well, I'll need you to come up here and speak into the microphone.
Yeah,
So I have it boxed right there.
Yeah, it's actually a little shorter than it should be, but if you were to take the bottom red line on that box and extend it down, that whole component will be.
The whole building?
The whole block.
Yeah, whole building.
Okay, thank you.
That whole building, not across the street and down?
No, just that building will be vertical mixed use.
So down to, include this bit right here, if you see my cursor circling.
Right.
So,
Thank you. For sure. I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page about what we were approving. Okay, on page 29, which is the landscape kind of plan with the trees and all that stuff. Unfortunately, I couldn't make out what those types of trees and stuff were. So I was wondering if staff would be able to tell us specifically what type of trees are on those pedestrian pathways between the box stores and the storefronts fronting the Vibe Trail. I guess my concern is that I want to make sure that if we're encouraging people to use these pedestrian pathways, that the trees are going to be specimens that are going to be, providing enough canopy when they're mature to actually make them tolerable to walk through during the summer.
and that's a fair question. You're looking at, oh man, the compressed image, which you did bring that to our attention, and we didn't have a chance to get it out, or look up that answer. But there's a lot of oaks in there. When you see and I'm going to totally butcher this name, but like quercus, the Latin term for it, that means oak in various forms. And so that's along there. There are also, it's a mix, so there are also some smaller understory trees like crepe myrtles as well. So it'll be a mix of it. So it'll mostly, so it's not all just one species of tree. So it provides some variety and a nice vista as you're going down and what have you as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't tell on the picture what those things were.
Understood.
Can I have a-
Yes.
On those
Commissioner
trees, and the maintenance on them, because what I'm worried about is, of course, driving down the Vibe and getting smacked in the head, with a low hanging branch, which crepe myrtles can do, unless, of course, you trim them up like some people, do, but others kind of leave them native. And, so would that be a lot of maintenance on those trees to maintain a height where golf carts can, drive down, since it is a Vibe Trail?
So that's a 3-component answer.
Okay.
So one, we've adopted the National Maintenance Code. So we have that. So by default, all properties in the city have to maintain stuff in a clean manner, and if not, then it goes to code enforcement and what have you. 2, we also, I believe, in our last update to the landscape code, we provided a segment in there, and I don't quote me on which subsection it is, but I remember the draft where we were wanting to provide for clear heights. And then 3, they may need to back me up on this, but as a project as professional and as large as this one, they're probably going to have a contract for a landscape maintenance team and
Okay.
facilities team across the board to maintain a Class A project accordingly.
Okay.
So they're going to
'Cause-
have to maintain the sidewalks internal and make sure it's swept. And if
Yeah.
you
Because, of
don't
course,
want to
the
twist
other
your ankle
thing,
on an
yeah, because the
acorn.
other thing with oaks is acorns,
Right.
as my yard will most definitely attest to right now.
Yep. So.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. You're fine. My last question
Oh,
for
and
this.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was able to pull up the image on the trees, and so I just wanted to
What do we
kinda go
get?
through those. So we've got big tooth maple, cotto maples, Texas ash, ginkgos, some crepe myrtles, mandolin pine, prunus, some oak trees, Texas live oak, red oak, Texas red oak, and Chinese elm, so.
Those are all on the pedestrian pathway between the box stores and the Vibe Trail, or?
This is all of the trees that they're
Through the whole
planning on
thing?
planting there, specifically along the pedestrian pathways. Looks like we're going to have a mix of, looks like Texas red oak or the standard oak tree. And then along the Vibe, it'll be a mix of oaks,
Okay.
mostly.
Good shade trees.
Yes,
Okay.
canopy trees, yes.
Perfect. Okay, my last question for the staff. On page 31 of the PUD ordinance, elevation C, this is showing a sidewalk in front of a building that's, the sidewalk is directly connecting with the Vibe Trail space. I don't know who in the city would be able to answer this question, but has that been looked at for any safety concerns with, pedestrians who are using that to go in and out of the businesses there, being in such close proximity to where we're going to have electric carts and scooters and people bicycling? Has someone looked at that to make sure that we don't need any kind of bollards or fencing or barricade or just something there to protect people in those two different spaces?
Not specifically yet, because part of that a large chunk of that will be part of the permits that follow entitlement.
Okay.
So that way we have not just planning staff, we do a good job in our reviews, but we also have engineering, and specifically we have a traffic engineer on staff, and who's really good about looking at those interfaces between streetscapes and sidewalks and all that kind of stuff. So we have we probably have over a dozen people that review site plans. from
So
various
this won't be the
departments.
final thing. It will still go through additional reviews and.
Correct.
Okay.
This is just presenting a general cross-section of how you can anticipate if you're going down, this is that vibe corridor going north-south. But, maybe there's some potted plants that get put out in front of the storefronts, or maybe it is a bollard, and that's just part of the review. In my short interactions that I've had with our new traffic engineer, there's been a few projects I've worked with him, and we've had to interface with how the sidewalk interfaces with intersections coming around and then signage associated with that, and just trying to work through this. So he's very detailed oriented, as the rest of our staff is.
Wonderful. Okay. That's it for questions for me. Does anyone else on the commission have questions now? No? Okay. We do need a motion and a second to take action on the item.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve, recommend to City Council for approval regarding a request for the rezoning of approximately 101 acres of planned unit development to include approximately 72 acres of retail and approximately 29 acres of multifamily for property located at 301 Bebee Road in Hayes County. With, do we need to bring in that 85% that you were talking about for impervious cover? Or, no, electric, it was the,
I might make an amendment to just add all those.
okay,
So
all right.
things.
I'll just make that approval as it stands now.
If I may,
Uh-huh,
if you're up for it, this
Okay.
is, if y'all would like to have a discussion before you make your motion, to put together the list of the recommended changes that you want to see,
okay,
and then make your motion, which will include those, so y'all know it beforehand.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you'll have to resend your motion to make that
okay, I'll
happen.
rescind my motion. All right.
Okay. So are we allowed to just kind of workshop this now and popcorn around and see
Yes,
who
that's
wants
fine.
that? Okay. Who's first? Yes, Commissioner James.
I'll go first. I think there's really only one thing that I would like to see changed. So the one thing that would make my no vote a yes vote is the gas station car washes. Like, that's got to be within the lines that we set. Like, we clearly set that, and we thought a lot about this as a city. I don't feel comfortable recommending to council an exception to something they thought so intensely about so recently.
Okay, so that would be to, I guess, add a section to prohibit in perpetuity gas station and car wash, and carve that out of the list of other prohibited uses with the 10-year expiration. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I'll go to mine. I would like to see us specifying in the, let's see, where did it go? Code modification for utilities to specify it will be existing electric infrastructure above ground along I-35. I would like to get the opinion of other folks on the commission about the impervious cover. So right now it says 90% for the area. What do we think about 85% cover per lot instead? Do we have any feelings strongly about that one way or the other?
I think it's fine. I mean, the way it is. I mean, 85%. I mean, it's like it's fine.
I have
Chair?
go ahead.
Yes, Commissioner Stiegel.
Yes, perhaps, of course, naive about these things, but 85% would seem better than 90. And frankly, given the fact that Kyle's so flood prone, I would even question the 85%. And also question whether or not this is an extraordinary challenge to our stormwater drainage. So that's a question I would have of staff. Is there a particular thought on that?
In the end, they're going to have to comply with state law, regardless if we make modifications from an impervious cover for what RS and and the R33 already have, which means the precondition surface runoff cannot be altered in a detrimental effect to flow offsite. So we'll have to have the appropriate stormwater controls on site, whether it does show at least one detention pond on there. And there's other ways you can make it work also from a drainage perspective as well, as long as it passes muster with the engineering department. We have a pretty good one when it comes to that.
Thank you.
So one question that I would have for staff, I know we're not at staff question time, but when we're talking about the entire development versus per lot, for this project, what is considered a lot? The whole thing looks like it's made of concrete to me. So when we're talking about 85% cover versus 90% cover over the entire development versus a lot, I don't know how much difference it really would make for us.
So there's going to be probably multiple lots in situations in a shopping center. Some projects, they're okay leasing out a pad site. Some of them are actually may want to do a fee simple lot where they purchase a portion of it and the developer sells it off. It just kind of depends on the business at hand. So either way you look at it, it's going to have to be accounted for in our permits. It is easier to account for on a per lot basis from an impervious cover on a particular pad site per pad site. But if it's not, it'll still also be on that site development permit. They're just going to have to keep track of it in a table on the same plan sheet whenever we're reviewing it, saying, okay, this project's coming in. They're going to add such and such impervious cover. Here's the effect of it on the overall project. So as long as it doesn't exceed the 90% based on the current draft, it'll have to be accounted for either way. And when we do our reviews, like there's comments after comments after comments from staff to make sure we're accounting for everything that we need to account for. So there's always adjustments, and we have to make sure that everything's compliant.
So it sounds like it would be a smidge easier for y'all to keep track on it per lot instead of for the entire area. So
Yes.
Okay. So what if we keep the 90% but change it to be per lot? Would y'all be okay with that? Or do you want to see it go down to 85?
I don't have any opinions on the matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay with the 90 as long as the drainage easement is what it needs to be. So luckily, my main concern was how it affected the outlying, with sheet flow and such. So, as long as it doesn't, because it's in a lower spot, I don't have a problem with the 90% as long as they have the drainage easement for it to slope into, to be able to capture any of that excess water when we have our major rain component every 2 or 3 years.
They will, in the end, have the appropriate design and,
Yeah.
and tools in
So
place
I'm
to.
okay with the 90 in this case.
Okay. Given that we don't have a bunch of strong feelings one way or the other, I'm going to propose that we do a modification to chart 2 to say 90% maximum impervious cover per lot.
Okay.
Those are all good. Okay, so the list so far contains to prohibit in perpetuity the gas station and car wash uses from the PUD, to modify the code around utilities to clarify the existing electric infrastructure along 35 would be allowed above ground, and to change the modification to chart 2 RS to specify per lot instead of per the entire area. Are there any other amendments that we would like to see?
Madam Chair, just one brief clarification. It's not in perpetuity, it's just prohibited uses.
Prohibited, okay. Thank you.
And if possible, however y'all decide to vote, please state either the exhibit that those items are under or the code section. Just for clarity, for when we come back, we're gonna have to watch the recording to adjust our staff reports to city council and what have you. So that'll be helpful for us.
So would it be better for you if we made motions for each of the different line items and then, or just do one major motion?
One motion's fine.
Okay.
Just make sure you got the exhibit or the code section.
Okay.
I think the uses is under a specific exhibit, and then the remainder of them are under exhibit and a code section. So the code section will be fine for the other ones.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I've got the list in front of me. So
Right,
it's gonna-
exactly, so.
All right. I would like to make a motion to approve, make a motion to recommend to City Council to, thank you, to rezone approximately 101 acres to planned unit development, the 72 acres retail services zoning, and approximately 29 acres multifamily apartments, on the condition that the annexation is completed and that the following changes are made to the PUD ordinance. Am I good so far? Okay. Exhibit A, we would propose to prohibit the gas station and car wash use. Exhibit C, Section 50-1, code modification, to clarify that utilities would be allowed above ground along I-35 for the existing electric infrastructure. Exhibit C, Chart RS2, to change the modification to specify that it's 90% maximum impervious cover per lot.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Chairperson Onken and a second by Commissioner James. Is there any discussion on that motion before we vote? Yes, Commissioner James.
I think we've come a long way in discussing this over 2 or 3 months, and this is a pretty good project. And I think some of us have been highly critical of it, and I think what's come has been a really good packet with a lot of good things, and I'm glad that we're finally at the end of it.
Anyone else? Okay. I do have just some brief comments before we vote. The staff memo that we were provided indicates that there's the Chapter 380 agreement to be considered, and it indicates that there'll be a net positive return of $65 million over 30 years. I don't know the specific elements of that agreement, but in an article that I read recently, it was titled, "Is This Development Out of Scale?" by a Mr. Daniel Harridges. He explains that when we plan and build at huge financial scales, we create fragile outcomes because mistakes such as misjudging or mistiming the market can leave big scars on the landscapes of our communities. So he considers developments to be at a huge financial scale when explicit or implicit subsidy is used to, as he says, defy economic gravity. That would be to make developments happen that would not otherwise be financially viable. He also cautions that it can be costly in the long run because these places are probably more likely to falter once the subsidy goes away, and it also suppresses the more incremental and unsubsidized growth that would organically occur in its absence. So going back to the Chapter 380 agreement that the city is pursuing, I do have concerns about whether this is a project that defies economic gravity. If it's not financially viable without a subsidy, I have some concerns about whether it is the highest and best use of the land. That being said, I do know this has been in the work for quite some time, and that the city manager and staff believes this is the best that can be done in this scenario. So I will vote yes for the rezoning, but it's not without trepidation. And I would suggest if there are folks in Kyle who are interested in, moving out of the area and want to sell some land, maybe go talk to these owners or maybe to the city to learn about the scenario, and maybe we can avoid being here again. So those are my comments. Anything else? Yes, Commissioner
Chair?
James. Hey, yes, Commissioner Stiegel.
Yes, thank you. I would agree with everything you just said. It's, as the Director of Planning said, it's not within our purview to consider the TERS or development agreement or anything else. I do think it's a good form in which to state the reluctance for some of us in seeing what the city might do. Now, I understand, especially with the Kohler Crossing issue and all of that, there's substantial reason for the city to be involved in this as they have been. Nevertheless, I do have concerns about the financing myself. If it's that desirable a property, it does seem that it might have been developed without our help. So I would agree with that in substance. And that doesn't mean I won't vote for it. It doesn't mean that I am negating the work of the staff, the council, and everyone else on our side of it who's put so much into this. But I think if we're going forward, a finance plan has not been finalized, and we need to take into consideration, indeed, the gravity of the financing of this project, and wish us all quite well in its development. The northeast side deserves something like this, but hopefully it doesn't cost the larger community.
Commissioner James.
Since we're going to that point, I was going to avoid saying anything about that specific part because it's not our purview. But I will say my vote to approve the planning and the zoning request does not change my opposition to the thought of the actual financing of it. I think that it's on the rest of us, as just as we are here on planning and zoning, we have purview over these things. These are things to tell the council. We can act as citizens too in this process, but this is where we have purview. I think it's important that while these discussions come out and get aired here, I would encourage my fellow members on the commission to continue to have these conversations directly with council. Because if you think this isn't where we need to go, we should be having these discussions with them. We see this in a very detailed form compared to many of the citizens in our area. And I agree. I absolutely think my vote for this is separate from my complete disagreement that the finance makes any sense or the incentives.
Any other comments on this motion? Okay, so to restate the motion, this is to approve the rezoning of the 101 acres to, where'd it go? 101 acres to a planned unit development, including approximately 72 acres of retail services zoning RS and approximately 29 acres of multifamily apartments R33, on the condition that the annexation is completed for the land, and including the amendments proposed to prohibit the amendments to exhibits A, C, and also C, as stated. That was kind of messy, but I didn't want to say it all again. Okay. If you are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion carries. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5B, consider and make a recommendation to City Council regarding a request by Pam Madere of Jackson Walker LLP, Z-23-0123, to rezone approximately 32 acres of land from RS Retail Services, approximately 67 acres of land from R33 Multifamily Apartments 3, and approximately 56 acres of land from W Warehouse to PUD Plan Unit Development for property located at 3040 Kyle Crossing in Hays County, Texas. There's a public hearing for the item. I will open that public hearing now. Do we have a presentation for this item?
Yes. Good
Do I
evening,
need to
Chairman.
close the public hearing? I closed the public hearing.
It's okay. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Jason Lutz, Senior Planner for the record. So this is a requested rezoning. Site's approximately 150 acres. There's multiple zonings on the property, RS, R33, and warehouse, and they are requesting a planned unit development for the entire tract. I do have quite a lot of slides, so I'm going to talk a little bit fast. So please, if I go too fast, please just yell at me. So moving forward on this, if I can change slides here. No, I'm frozen. Sorry, technical difficulties. Let me try
Oh,
this
no.
again. Okay. All right, so hopefully this works now. So again, the applicant is requesting a planned unit development district. This is going to be a mixed-use site. This PUD's going to establish some development standards to govern the project with some variances to our local code worked into those regulations. This project is going to establish two kind of distinct tracts within the development. I'm going to be referring to those as the hospital tract and the Lake Park tract to try and cut down on some of the confusion. The PUD is also going to have a secondary set of development standards for the hospital portion of the tract. This is done just in case the hospital chooses not to be constructed there, and it's basically a Plan B, but at this point, we're anticipating the hospital moving forward. So both tracts will each have their own development agreements. Those will be considered at City Council at another meeting. I just wanted to let y'all know that those DAs will kind of incorporate what comes out of this meeting as far as the PUD document itself. So this is the project location. You can see this is just north of the HEB between Kyle Crossing and on the corner of 1626. This is where a planned extension of Marketplace will be connected to connect the southern and northern portions of those streets. This is the project concept plan. Again, on this image here, the hospital tract is viewed on the north and Lake Park tract is the south, which is a mixed-use, vertical mixed-use development. This image here actually will show you where those vertical mixed-use areas are. Those are highlighted in red. Those structures will have a VMU component, and the blue are called out VMU corridors. So just kind of so you can orientate yourself to when we discuss those areas, what you're going to be seeing. So the proposed land uses on this project are going to be multifamily residential. This could be for rent or for sale via condo regimes. Vertical mixed-use residential, again, for rent or sale. Also include commercial, office, retail, restaurants, basically our retail services district land uses that are being requested. It does prohibit various uses, gas stations, standalone banks, auto-related commercial activities, other similar uses regarding automobiles. It does contemplate a hotel conference center and public parkland and private parkland, which would be open to the public. I will discuss those a little bit in this presentation, but generally the DA will cover the kind of meat and potatoes of those negotiations. So looking at some of the development variances, signs, it's going to allow I-35 sign regulations to apply to all of the development, so not just the part that fronts I-35. This will be the entire development. I'd like to clarify that should the hospital not develop and it goes to Plan B, those sign regulations would also apply to that tract as well. But if the hospital develops, they have their own sign package. Setback allows reduction of setbacks for a more urban environment. We're looking at 10-foot front, side, corner side, back, 0 on interior side. Where the setbacks cause public infrastructure to be located under street or under pavement, under sidewalks, this PUD will allow those streets to be privately maintained by the developer to limit the cost on the citizens and the work for Public Works. So Public Works will go in, repair the main break, repair the base, but they will not be required to repair the asphalt or pavement. This PUD does contemplate no minimum lot sizes or areas and lot frontage reductions, and also allows cross-access easements. So currently, our subdivision require frontage. This is going to allow it to, maybe some don't have frontage, maybe some have flag lots. As we get into site planning and subdivision, we'll look at all those, but it does allow multiple ways to access the site. The height here, and again, this is Lake Park development side only. We're looking at 120 feet or 14 stories for the hotel conference center and office towers. There were some identified on one of those images. And then 10 stories for multifamily and vertical mixed-use structures. Again, 120 being the number to be watching there. The I-35 overlay design standards will comply for 4 stories or less. So if there's something that comes in at that, they're going to adhere to the full I-35 overlay standards. Anything above that, they're going to adhere to the exhibits in the image or in the document that show examples of the commercial, the office. So if you reviewed those through those packets, you know kind of what they look like. These are some of the elevations provided just for kind of reference. This would be residential mixed use. This is the retail exhibit. So impervious cover on this one is going to be maximum at 85% for the overall site, and that's based on a no detention study that was done several years ago. This detention study did include our Atlas 14 update, so this is the most current model. So staff is very comfortable with that. It does allow for cluster developments with individual lots permitted to exceed those 85%, but it also has to adhere to the landscape ordinance. But just looking at the overall concept plan, staff feels very comfortable at our impervious cover. Density is a little different. There's no unit per acre cap that you generally see in the R33. It's going to be based on impervious cover, height, and setbacks. So just the function of parking, setbacks, and height will determine what those densities are. Additionally, there are some LUE discussions. That's a living unit equivalent sewer capacity that will further dictate that density, but that is going to be covered under the development agreement. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about that here. No Florida area ratios are required under this development. That's something that we have in our code. Minimum unit sizes, there are no minimum unit sizes in this section, but it must be based on the adopted International Building Code. So there are certain code requirements in the IBC that says your kitchen has to be so many square feet, your bedroom for single occupancy has to be so many square feet. So they will follow those. So in essence, there are minimums. It's just not a flat number. Parking allows shared parking between uses. We are looking at the 1.5 spaces per unit and 10% of the total for guest parking. So that should be sufficient to handle all of the multifamily. Restaurants are parked at one space per 100 gross square feet to account for customers and staff. This is something city staff has been pushing on some new developments just because of our issues with restaurant parking. Hotel is parked at 1.1 space per unit, and there are no parking maximums in this PUD. There is going to be an alternative review process. So I-35 overlay development standards shall be reviewed by staff, not P&Z, and that'll be for adherence to the PUD and the development agreement. Should there be any issues or the developer or staff have a disagreement on what those are, whether they meet, then at that point they would come to you for determination. Site plans will be submitted for each pad site for review and approval. However, this PUD does extend those expiration dates 2 years and 5 years, depending on the type of plan that comes in. Streets, it does allow cross-access easements. Again, no lot frontage, allows for private streets maintained by the developer, allows for block lengths to be exceeded via approved means of the adopted fire code. So fire trucks basically just need to turn around every 500 feet so they can go further as long as there's some type of bulb out or something like that. Other allowances per this PUD, it's going to allow 10-foot fencing. It will allow ag-exempt property to be exempt from the city's mowing requirements. So again, this is a large-scale development. Over the years, you may see sections develop before others. What remains in ag won't be getting letters from the code officer during spring saying they have to mow. They'll keep that ag use there. It does allow some overland drainage. So generally, everything's going to be put in storm, but there's going to be some areas, gas lines, sensitive infrastructure, vibe trails that may allow for open flow overland, but for the most part, the development itself will be utilizing street and storm sewers. This development will allow things to be built within the 100-foot stream setback, especially if you see along the dam or in the floodplain area, they're contemplating some restaurant uses, so to be able to push those up further than that 100-foot. And staff is comfortable with that. Currently, our code requires blanket municipal utility easements on all 4 sides. This PUD is going to only require them where those utilities are actually constructed, so we'll identify those during the subdivision and planning process. So now I'm going to jump into the hospital site. This would be north or west of Marketplace, depending on which map you're looking at. And this is what we're going to refer to as Concept Plan A, Option A. So if I use those terms interchangeably, that's what. So you can see here, there's land for future expansion. The yellow line is actually going to be a donation as part of the other development agreements for Vibe Trail. And then they're also giving some additional land for our tank expansion. So it's kind of a win-win for the city and the developer here. So you'll see parking garage, a hospital, 7 stories, and then different, support facilities. So again, I talked about the hospital, 7 floors, gross floor area of around 700,000 square feet or 550 hospital beds. 4 other medical office buildings, 4 floors with total gross floor area of 80,000 square foot each, and then other medical offices and support uses within those, gift shops, cafeteria, things of that nature. And as well, this hospital may have a helipad located on the site. So in this one, they have their own alternative sign package for the hospital. That was an exhibit. Again, that just applies for the hospital itself if that gets developed. Setbacks allows reduction of setbacks. 50-foot is required setback, but that may be adjusted via site plan approval. That'll be a staff determination based on other factors, safety, drainage, looming. We'll look at all of those. Again, no lot minimum sizes or areas and lot frontage reductions are allowed, and then also cross-access easements are allowed depending on how that site breaks up. The height on this one, a maximum is going to be 150 for the hospital and helipad. Again, impervious cover, again, is based on the entire site at 85%, same as the Lake Park tract. They do have to adhere to our landscaping ordinance, so the reality between the parkland, the floodplain areas, we don't think that they'll get to that area, maybe on a per lot basis, but the overall development should be underneath that. Parking, the hospital tract does allow parking to be in front of the principal building. We do have some screening requirements, either vegetative or small wing walls or something like that. They're not requesting variances to that, but it does allow that parking in front. Again, allows for private streets maintained by the developer and allows block lanes to be approved via the adopted fire code. So other variances, this one will allow fences up to 12 feet in height around sensitive facilities. So basically our water tower tanks, try and hide that facility a little bit from the front door of the hospital. And there's, again, that's a separate donation agreement that's being considered as part of the development agreement where we'll work out fence materials, paint colors, and all of that. This does allow staff approval of conditional use permits for building elevations. Again, not going to P&Z, we're not trying to cut y'all out, but this is kind of a complicated PUD, and so staff wants to make sure that we're just kind of sticking with it and kind of move on. Again, ag exempt properties shall not follow the city's mowing regulations. So now I'm going to talk Hospital Concept Plan B. This is how the park properties could develop if a hospital is not developed on site. Again, the plan is for that hospital there. This would have some multi-family, retail, restaurant, assisted living, some private parks open to the public. And this is kind of what that land use will look like. Again, that land plan may change a little bit. The PUD does give it some flexibility, kind of move buildings. They'll submit their changes to staff, and we'll look to verify if this is a minor or major amendment, and then determine what the best path forward to get that approved. Proposed land uses on the hospital Plan B would be, again, multifamily, vertical mixed use, commercial office, retail, restaurant, senior living, hotel, again, public parkland and private parkland open to the public. These development standards are actually going to follow those of the Lake Park tract that are kind of covered in the last one. So signage that I-35 will carry over, your setbacks, your private streets, pretty much all of that is the same. So parkland dedication, the Lake Park tract may donate approximately 20 acres for a public park. I have an image to show you on a little bit. The private parkland shall be also open to the public, so the park areas that they own will be all maintained by them, but open for us. The hospital tract, again, is going to provide an easement for a section of the vibe, and then parkland fees for residential units shall be paid at the site of site planning in the development process. So we'll do the parkland dedication itself, but the park development fees will be paid for every multifamily unit that goes up. Additional land will be donated by the city for the extension of marketplace, or to the city for the extension of marketplace and expansion of the city's water facilities, and that will be constructed as part of the city's road bond package. This is just general guidelines. Don't quote me on this, that these are the boundaries, but that's the general idea. The applicant may go through a CLOMR process, look at redefining those floodways, floodplains, so this area may change a little bit, but that is generally what's going to be negotiated at a later date. And so I have staff recommendations that are a little bit different from the package you received. We had another meeting, follow-up meeting this morning. We discovered a couple of errors in the code modification table. Since those were already disseminated to the public, we thought it would just be best to handle them as staff recommended modifications. We've already negotiated with the developer on that, so everybody's on board with those. So I'm listing them out here so that if there are any modifications you want to make, you can make those, and then you can just say, and plus the modifications listed by staff. So try and try and keep your motion. I'm trying to help you out a little bit on that. So let me go through some of our modifications. These are all to exhibits D, D1, and D2 in the PUD, and those cover the development standards for the Lake Park, the hospital, and Hospital B. So we're going to modify section 53-724. Again, it's page 35 of exhibit D, page 90 of D2. We just want to modify that language to match the language that's actually in the PUD document itself. So we just want to make sure those two are married, and this talks about how you do minor and major amendments. We are going to delete section 4139 and section 41146. The applicant is going to just go ahead and adhere to city code on those, so they're in agreement with that, so no worries there. Exhibit D, page 33, and Exhibit D2, page 88. These are some clarifying the sign ordinance section. So we're adding chapter 29, signs, sections 29-16G2 and sections 29-17. This allows backlit channel signs, allows canopy signs, roof signs, how wall signs are calculated. And it also extends, again, as I mentioned earlier, the I-35 commercial signage section to the entire tract. And then Exhibit D1, page 81, we're adding the kind of same sections to allow for signage should that, how that tract develops, but it would not extend the I-35. It would just be those certain variances. So I'm sure y'all have lots of questions. I know I talked really fast, but please, hopefully I can answer any of those you have today.
Thanks, guys. All right, thank you. Do we have questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner James.
I'll start. So on the helipad for this building, how far is it to the street comparative to the one at Seton?
So I cannot answer that right now. I have not seen a full-blown site plan. This is very schematic in nature, but if
Just from
y'all-
where this is on here, about.
Representative from the hospital, maybe a bit better.
Yeah,
Okay.
Michael Whalen on behalf of St. David's.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you. We're looking forward to this huge investment, as you can imagine, and we've spent weeks, months working through it. I think we've gotten to the right spot. That's not ours. We have a prettier one. But I don't know where it is. But I think that the bottom line is ultimately it'll be on top of the roof. So
That's what I was gonna
this is not our design. This was an earlier one. Can you pull up the one that has ours real quickly, like the Vibe Trail? I think the Vibe Trail one.
Yeah, let me see.
Cool, so it's gonna be on the roof.
If I remember.
There it is.
There we go.
Yeah. So typically the way this will work is we're going to start with a three-story structure, three-story building. First two floors will have approximately 55 beds. Structurally, it'll be able to carry the weight of the additional floors that will be added on. This is the way they typically build them because the capacity will be growing over a period of time. The helipad will typically be outside, to be specific to your question. I don't know that they've exactly figured out where. It's probably going to be towards the bottom of this, kind of where this leg is right here. I don't know if you can see my, probably be in that general area because they won't, I don't know that it'll be out. They'll have that wing built quite at the beginning, and then ultimately it'll be on the roof.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's going to end up on the roof of the hospital. That's typically what they do.
Yes, Commissioner James.
My next question is on the Vibe Trail here, as we have seen on this side. Do we have any idea from city how this side is going to connect with the Vibe Trail on the other side?
I'll let Will's our resident vibe expert. I know where this one is on this side, but connections, I'm a little spotty on.
Let me step up there.
Will Atkinson for the record. So, are you talking about to the south of 1626?
No, I'm
Or
talking
to
about
the east.
Yeah, from the east to the west here, because there's
Okay.
a Vibe Trail coming into that shopping center that we put on the north of 1626
Okay.
or south of 1626. Sorry.
wait, so,
where Chipotle and everything went
okay,
in.
so, yes. So, because it relates to a connection point with this PUD zoning, I'm going to discuss the site to the south across 1626 as it relates to the Vibe Trail connection. So on the, let me pull it back up over here to the hospital site. Okay, so up in the, right in this area, this is our build-out, expanded water tank facility. Right here is this FM 1626 bridge going over the Union Pacific Railroad going west. So this line right here is the Vibe Trail that'll go under and at grade underneath the overpass. And it's going to come around on the east side where the 12-foot masonry wall is going to be, and loop around here, and then come up all the way over to here, which is about the existing end of Marketplace coming south, and it's going to at grade cross and connect to the existing Vibe Trail coming down from the Live Oak warehouse, right? Now, when it goes south on 1626 or underneath it, it's going to tie in to the pedestrian bridge that's being designed. That's going to jump also over to the Cromwell Drive with CSW. So it's going to be all integrated. Does that answer your question? And then there's going to be a spur coming down the lake as well on the east side of Marketplace along the 20-acre park and going under 35 and then popping back up on the north side of Lowe's right there too. Does that answer it?
So lots of ways to vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Yep. Thank you, Will.
Yes, Commissioner Shield.
Okay, so my questions primarily are.
Oh, can you turn your mic on, please?
Right. I don't know why I keep doing that. My question is in regards to, yes, the Lake Park concept area. The first one is we're doing the conference hotel at 14 stories.
Yes, this would be N5, building N5 on this one.
Okay. Just because I don't like to assume, but have we contacted the fire department to make sure that they can handle a building that tall? Because right now, we don't have one in the city, correct?
This would be the tallest building in the city.
Exactly. So have we contacted or somebody contacted the fire department to make sure that they are able to handle a building that tall in the city at this time, at the time of hopefully it'll be built?
So buildings of that size, I don't know that there's any fire department that can handle those. We have not had direct conversations with them as far as how they would fight those fires. Ultimately, what happens with structures like this on the height is they have to go through additional building code modifications to make that happen. So even the current hospital, to get to those 9 stories, there was certain fire codes that they had to do in addition. So I'm not a fire code expert. I do know a little bit about what those are. They're not cheap fixes. Obviously your ladder truck, 30-foot long, maybe it has 3 rungs of extensions. It might get to 90 feet. That's assuming they have the clearance to get out that far. So this structure will be, when they come in for permitting, again, the zoning will allow up to that height, but unless they can meet the fire code with our firefighting capabilities, they would have to bring that down.
Okay. And then my next question is, this all to the west side, or excuse me, the east side of this property butts up to Kyle Crossing. It doesn't butt up to the frontage road.
Correct.
So I'm concerned about Kyle Crossing only being the 2-lane with, of course, it shrinking because of that low water crossing there. Is there going to be access from the frontage road, with like cross streets to get to it? Because most people are going to want to get to it from, the frontage road or, the north. They're going to try to, come down Kyle Crossing. And I just, with a size of, a project this size, I don't see Kyle Crossing as being able to handle that.
No, and if you can see this little portion, this southern spur, this actually connects to the I-35 frontage. Once this gets improved, I think it'll, generally as people kind of learn, traffic is kind of like water, finds the path of least resistance. They'll kind of learn, look, I'm not going to go down the one-lane bridge because I don't want to wait 45 minutes for all the cars that don't have to yield. There were some discussions on the bridge itself, our limited ability to widen or do anything with it. Regardless of this development, we're going to have the same kind of infrastructure issues in that location. We did discuss an opportunity of maybe cutting through the project itself and north of the bridge, but that kind of gets into the dam spillway area. Again, this is more conceptual in nature. We haven't done any engineering. Most likely, the city will, at some point in the future, as these properties develop between the frontage and Kyle Crossing, we'll have to look at requirements for additional right-of-way, and then most likely a second bridge to the south of that existing bridge, or do some more access points to there. But I don't have an exact answer right now on how that's going to play out, but just as we kind of get through the development and kind of see their plans and go from there, then we'll start having those conversations. But we have thought about what's that going to do to this area and how does that bridge handle it, but we are kind of limited.
Yeah, because I can see it, I can see Marketplace being able to handle the traffic once, that is extended to the 4 lanes that it's going to be, or 5 lanes in some spots. I'm just concerned about people coming from the north. They're going to want to use either the frontage road and turn down another little 2-lane road, right, behind HEB, or Kyle Crossing, again, a very small 2-lane road. And so I am concerned about that. So I would like to maybe see another, like you have this cut out at the N1 and N2, maybe another spur where.
Well, and the only reason we're showing this
S4.
spur is because this is part of the application.
Right, no, and I'd like to hopefully, maybe at some point, see a spur from S4, to the frontage road, just to be able to get access from the frontage road directly to that property without them having to go on 2-lane roads.
Well, I'd like to also let you know, it's not shown on this image, but there has been some discussion. It'll probably take place during the parkland dedication portion. Is this street here where it dead ends? There is some discussion about connecting this up to Marketplace, so they actually have a secondary route out of there. Again, that's not a guarantee, but those are some things that we're looking at. Again, this is kind of a unique site. This little mini lake and dam and spillway and that bridge. It creates some challenging planning issues, but I think the developers and staff are up for that. So, yes, sir.
No.
I mean, one of the options would be to just sort of close that off, because you got that small. I mean, it can't be replaced, but just making it part of the whatever you call it, the little road there, with that low water crossing there, making part of the development, sort of. Just shutting off so that you don't have any traffic going there. And that kind
No,
of
it wouldn't be just shut off. Like I said, we'd have to actually have a secondary route either constructed. Again, spitballing ideas in the department, it's most likely a second bridge south of that one, and then that bridge becomes part of our trail network or our park system or something like that. Again, those are really fine details that we just don't have answers to at this point. It'll be subject to this council, future councils, kind of depending on the timing.
I'd like to add, just so everybody's aware, that narrow bridge, the only thing we can really do from a city perspective is to perform maintenance on it, like milling and overlay, because that is the first concrete bridge in Hayes County, and it's a historic marker. So we have to, any solution in and around that, we have to be extremely careful. I think it's like part of old Highway 2 or something like that.
So we run into this all the time. I mean,
Right.
you could literally just take the bridge out and donate it to place it on the park, you know, and so where the bridge itself stays. I mean, we do that all the time with historic bridges. They just take them apart, or literally take them up, donate them to the county.
You heard it from TxDOT themselves. We're good. Yeah.
Yeah, not speaking my text of it. I mean, there is a possibility with historic coordination and just say, oh, we're donating the bridge this week.
No, it is definitely something we considered early on in the process. We had some conversations about kind of bypassing that bridge, but just as where we're at, it just, we weren't ready to answer that.
Other questions?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
It's on page 35 on the screen, it's section 53.424, I believe. It's regarding making minor amendments to the land plan without city manager approval regarding infrastructure and so forth. Tell me what a minor amendment might be in terms of infrastructure.
Actually, that is one of the amendments staff is proposing. So we have some different language in the PUD ordinance itself. And so we want that section that you're pulling up to match our PUD ordinance. Sorry, let's see. Yeah, so you're reading page 22 of the PUD ordinance. Okay, let me pull that one up. Give me a second. But yes, you are fair to question that. That was a concern staff had. We didn't feel changes to city infrastructure was a minor amendment. So here is the language that staff would like to use. This is what we are wanting to mirror this language into that section of code. Owner may submit minor amendments to land plans, including changes to the layout of uses, driveways, lots, and on-site infrastructure to the city for review and approval to determine if amendment is major or minor and in compliance with this PUD ordinance. Then it classifies what a minor amendment is, and then what a major amendment is, and then how, if there's a discrepancy or some conflict, how that gets appealed. So we definitely were concerned that you could just kind of go to the city manager and file it, and there would be no review. So we feel this language will cover the city on major and minor amendments.
Thank you. That's quite important, I would see, and very good work. And also on future phases, the hospital section, if future phases may be exempt from 10% landscaping and screening requirements.
Well, they would be exempt from the future landscape, but because of the way the site is built out, we were comfortable with that. They still are capped at their 85% on kind of that section. The two sections are kind of weird. The site was developed at 85% overall, but the Marketplace Road is going to, in essence, kind of create a dam between those two. So most likely there's going to have to be a little bit more impervious cover on that side to kind of offset without having to do some major infrastructure work on the road itself with culverts and storm pipes. So we were kind of comfortable with that that language, but if that's something you'd like to recommend as a change, please feel free to do so, and we can bring that up with council at the next meeting.
Okay. And maybe it's something for consideration, although it sounds like you've literally surveyed the land quite well. Another issue is that in the PUD ordinance, no traffic studies required and no off-site traffic or roadway improvements. The latter makes sense. Is it always the case in this kind of development that we would see that the developer would have no responsibility for traffic studies?
I'll answer that question. In the case within the city of Kyle, that's kind of standard. City of Kyle does not require traffic impact analysis as part of their development plans or subdivisions. We employ the adjacent lane mile fee. So that's a formula based on the land use, the square footage, kind of how much traffic is generated. And that fee is paid to a line item where the city can then use those funds to do those improvements on those streets. So this is kind of just in line with what we've been doing for a while now. We do anticipate that there will probably be some changes that need to be made, especially along Kyle Crossing, the bridge, but we're hoping that, you know, the development of Marketplace, that extension itself is going to kind of change traffic patterns there. So this is kind of in line with what we've been doing. Yes, sir.
Okay. The common complaint in the city, of course, is that the traffic controls and so forth lag so far behind development. So that's one good reason to ask the question. This is question just part of a learning experience here, but attachment B2 on page 60, as I have in my notes at any rate, it has a clause in there about conflicts. And this is a question for council, I would suppose, if council's present, but it would help me to understand this. But under the clause having to do with conflicts, it says to the extent of any conflicts between the PUD ordinance and the development agreement pertaining to land use, site development, regulations, or land development matters, this PUD ordinance shall prevail. So that means that push comes to shove, the development agreement has no standing given this clause.
Well, that is more conflicts within the existing zoning code. So we've included a bunch of variances within this document from our code. Sometimes there's some unintended consequences. An example would be, say the acreages or the percentages didn't match on landscaping versus impervious cover. Generally, they add up to 100% is usually what you get to. So if the code requires 15% landscaping and the PUD allows 90% impervious cover, if there's a conflict there, then this PUD would win out versus the original zoning ordinance.
Mm-hmm. And so the PUD would win out if there's an exemption from 10% landscaping then. So that might be something to change. I'll let my fellow commissioners discuss that if they want to. All right, thank you very much. You addressed my essential questions. That was a very good presentation, and I could check off my list pretty well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay. I have two items, more administrative than anything, stuff that I just noticed recently. In part 1 on page 34, Exhibit D, Code Modifications, it says the maximum height for a multifamily would be 10 stories. We were given a specific number of feet for the other items as well as stories, but we were only told the number of stories for multifamily. Is it the same numbers of feet? Is it still 120? Or?
It is still going to be 120. So
okay.
if they designed maybe smaller floor plates on the ground floor and upper floors, and they wanted to squeeze in that 15th floor, but they were at the 120, we would say no. It's kind of both. But generally, just construction standards the way that is, I mean, that's a 12-foot wall plate on each floor, which is a little difficult to do. Usually your first floor is 16 feet, and your second floors can go from 10 to 12. So it just kind of depends on how they construct and design the building.
Okay, thank you. My last comment, it's more to just make sure that we're all clear. So this spans both part 1 and part 2. So we're saying hospitals be 7 stories. So part 1 on page 38, section 41-136, chart 1, 53-33, chart 1, it states 120 feet for hospital facility. But part 2, page 28, same sections, 41-136, chart 1, 53-33, chart 1, states maximum height of 150 feet for hospitals. So the number that y'all have been saying, it seems like it's sometimes different in different places.
That may be just a typo. What page number was that so we can make a note?
So part 1, page 38, and part 2, page 28.
Yes. So that's the difference.
So the Lake Park tract could also have a hospital on it?
Hi, April Brown, on behalf of St. David's. So if we do not close on this hospital tract, they could develop a hospital, but it would not be, there's a provision in the purchase contract that would not be for 20 years, I believe. So it would be at some point in the future if for some reason this weren't to pass and St. David's were to close. So I think it's just a fallback measure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't talking about the same thing in two different documents with two different numbers.
And if you look at that, that part applies only to the Lake Park tract, whereas the part 2 applies only to the hospital tract.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that was all the questions from me. We would need a motion and a second to take action on the item.
And Commissioners, I would just like to remind y'all, any motions y'all make, if y'all could include the requested changes that staff presented, that'd be the easiest way to add them to your motion.
Yeah, yeah, can you?
I'll put them back on, but I think for staff, if you just say as presented by staff,
Okay,
it's a
all
little
right,
easier
as
for
long
you
as that will,
guys. And
okay, cover it.
One quick question, Chair, of this. This is the last time we'll be seeing it, this planning and zoning, isn't it?
yes, this will go to council on December 5th for first read.
And subsequent to that, during the course of site planning and everything, the particulars of that, that stays with you folks on staff.
For the most part, you will be seeing anything for buildings 4 stories or under, and then any, if there's any debate on a ruling or what something means, if we have to come back to y'all.
Okay, thank you very much. Mhm.
Okay, does anyone have a motion?
With
Yes,
a motion.
Commissioner James.
I move that we approve item 5B with the recommendations made by staff.
Second.
Okay. Okay, recommend approval of 5B with changes, what did you say, suggested or recommended?
Recommended by staff.
Recommended by staff. Okay. Is there any, we have a motion by Commissioner James and a second by Commissioner Mata to.
Spiegel.
Spiegel. You raised your hand, it confused me. Okay. Okay, thank you for correcting me. Motion by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Stiegel to recommend approval of item 5B with the changes recommended by staff. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes, Commissioner James.
So this is the back half of my second term, and I just want to say this is probably one of the best pieces of mixed uses and development of a site that we have seen. Increasing density in an effective way and not being spread out and being clear about it is something that we have asked for years. This does it effectively well. It's also, citizens have asked us to be bold in the things that we're doing, increasing the height of, and I know there are some worries about, larger buildings, but I think this gives us an opportunity as the city of Kyle to get to where we are defining ourselves in this way. Like, we're no longer just a stop on the road anymore. We're a town of almost 70,000, or almost 60,000 people, headed to 70,000, headed to more than that. It's really important that we are able to discuss these things now, pass these things now, and really set ourselves up in an effective way. And this gives us a shot to do it. And also, I just want to say that, bringing in another hospital has been a really important thing that I've heard from folks. Being able to get some wait times down, being able to get more beds. And so I think that's awesome that we're taking care of all of these things in this item. And I just wanted to say, thank you all for bringing this and working so hard on this as staff and everything.
Yes. Madam Chair? I would like to make just a comments, again, echoing Commissioner James. I think these kind of projects are incredibly complex. I've worked in healthcare for many years and for different hospital systems, and it's hard to get something on the ground. It's especially hard to get something on the ground when we have all these other things going with it. It's a really intricate kind of development in its own particular ways. That's why I really want to thank staff. And I really like the fact that we'll not only have more density or central mass here for around medical or healthcare, but also it gives us the opportunity to have development of other professions that are either allied with health or maybe just new professions coming to the community, and there might be space in this development for them. But I think this is a really good development for Kyle, and I'm quite pleased to see it.
Other comments? Okay. I'll admit this one, when I saw the height request, I kind of gulped a little bit like, whoa, what? But given the timeline of this project, I do like that we're giving flexibility to the PUD, because just because they're saying 14 stories doesn't mean they'll build 14 stories. They will look at the city of Kyle and what's happening here, and they'll do something that's appropriate and makes sense for whoever's going to occupy that space, as well as the environment of Kyle. So I came to terms with the height restriction, so I'm happy to vote yes on this one. If there's no other discussion on the motion, I'll call the vote. Okay. So again, the question is whether to recommend approval of item 5B with the changes recommended by staff. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okie dokie. Item number 6, staff report. Item 6A, staff report by Will Atkinson, Director of Planning. Do you have a report for the commission?
Yeah, just a couple items. Will Atkinson, Director of Planning. We are not meeting on December 26th.
Thank you.
It's a good thing I'll be in Chicago.
Yeah, this should be left unsaid. We're not meeting on the 26th. So, just in case anybody did not know. Second one, for comprehensive plan adoption dates, we will bring, for a public hearing only, the comp plan on December 12th to y'all. This is the time for the citizens to provide input to y'all, but you cannot consider anything. You have to sit there and listen to it. And we will account for it in the minutes and what have you. But the January 9th meeting with y'all will be a public hearing and consideration. So it'll be another public hearing where people can voice their concerns or support and what have you. But then you can start making comments or suggestions or recommendations, discussion, you name it. And then on the January 16th meeting, that will be at City Council. They will host a public hearing and consideration as well. So it's exciting. I'm ready to see. I'm hoping the project will be approved, but it's exciting that it's coming forward. It was a bit of a delay, but it's good.
And
So-
some projects put on hold because of it, so.
Yeah. So that's all I have for tonight.
Great, thank you. Yes, Commissioner James.
I noticed that items for consideration wasn't on our agenda tonight. Would you be willing to take an item for consideration?
We can't do it tonight.
Okay.
Because it's not an item for consideration to be added. We had taken it off primarily because these two big projects on 5A and B have taken up, if I were to guess, probably about 50% of staff's workload over the last 3 or 4 months alone. So
Okay.
we still have that list of things y'all want to see brought forward, but we've had to push it to the side for temporarily.
Cool. Okay, item number 7, adjournment. I'm going to do it my way this time. As we've completed all the items on the meeting's agenda, there is no further business that can be discussed at this time. So we are adjourned at 8:14 p.m.